This July, we are getting the first, well, technically it's actually the second, live-action appearance of Galactus in Fantastic Four First Steps. Earlier this week, we got our first full look of what the Devourer of Worlds will look like in the movie, but in today's video, we are going to be talking about the comic origins of Galactus and the potential theories of where this version of the character could come from. And at the end of the video, I will answer some of your mailbag questions. If you have a question you want us to answer in a later video, drop it down in the comments below with the hashtag mailbag. With that being said, let's roll the intro. Galactus made his first appearance all the way back in 1966 in Fantastic Four number 48. Now, I've recently discussed the Galactic trilogy in the comics when discussing the inspiration Fantastic Four First Steps may be taking from that arc, so I'm not going to spend too much time discussing it. Instead, I want to talk about the origins of Galactus that maybe some of the casual fans aren't too familiar with, and how it may impact this version of the character that we'll be seeing in Fantastic Four First Steps. Now, in the comics, the Earth 616 version of Galactus was originally a mortal man named Galen. He lived in the doomed universe that predated our own, which was destroyed in an event known as the Big Crunch, which preceded the Big Bang. Knowing his universe was destined to die, Galen piloted a vessel straight into the heart of the Crunch in an effort to save his homeworld of Ta. This was unsuccessful, however, Galen ended up surviving. He absorbed the cosmic energy from the heart of the Big Crunch and was reborn as the powerful Galactus. However, with that power came the curse of a constant hunger, one that could only be satiated by the continuous destruction of inhabited planets. Now, Galactus is often framed by some fans or casual fans as the massive big bad of the Marvel Universe. I saw this pretty frequently in the comments for our videos as Galactus was announced as the primary antagonist of First Steps, that a lot of people misunderstand the role that Galactus has in the Marvel Universe. This was a once heroic being who exists with the burden of knowing his previous universe died and that he has to continuously destroy other planets in order to survive. He's even made efforts to destroy uninhabited planets, but it doesn't satiate the hunger. That cosmic energy demands that he destroy life, and he can't just stop existing. Galactus is necessary in order to maintain cosmic balance, which is a huge problem whenever the Earth is in his crosshairs. But with this being the first true live-action appearance of Galactus, and knowing that Fantastic Four First Steps will take place on a parallel Earth, does that mean that this version of the character will follow that exact backstory? While I do think it's a strong possibility that this version of the character will be fully unique to this universe and follow that specific backstory, there are two other theories that have been floating around the internet that I think are pretty intriguing in their own right. I'm also going to apologize because I don't remember where I originally saw these theories, and they've been parroted and copied by so many people since then that finding the original sources is becoming impossible. The first theory suggests that, based on the character design, this version of Galactus originally came from the universe that Earth 616 exists within. Now, Galactus in the comics is consistently at odds with the Celestials of the Marvel Universe, and the Celestials most recently had a big role in Eternals, and this leaves the door open for the Eternals' next big appearance to happen in a Fantastic Four First Step sequel. There seems to be a sentiment growing among fans that Marvel is just going to push so many of these characters and storylines that fans didn't immediately connect to the side, and that we're never going to revisit these things ever again, with the Eternals being one of them. But if we're looking at this realistically, the threads that were left open at the end of Eternals weren't things that needed to be handled immediately. They're currently off in deep space, far away from the major events that we've seen take place on Earth 616. The only cliffhangers we had from that movie that were Earth-based was how will the world react to a celestial hand sticking out of the ocean, which was already tackled to varying degrees in Captain America Brave New World, and Dane Whitman taking up the Ebony Blade, becoming Black Knight, and meeting Blade, which will be resolved eventually whenever we get the Mahershala Ali Blade movie. But then we have the cosmic-based cliffhangers. The Eternals who decided to stay on Earth are taken for judgment by Arishem the Celestial, while the remaining Eternals meet Eros, the brother of Thanos, and he hints that he knows how to find them. Now, I talked about it in my video yesterday, but Eternals was originally supposed to be the second movie in Phase 4 of the MCU, one that possibly would have led to Eternals being much more financially successful, and I'm sure Marvel would have continued that story much sooner. However, because Eternals wasn't as successful or critically acclaimed as Marvel thought it was going to be, we're going to have to wait a little while longer to see the conclusion of that story. And I think the Fantastic Four are a great group to continue on the Eternal story. And it could be a great way to continue the story of the Galactus that they faced off against in First Steps if he originally came from this universe. I know Eternals didn't connect with a lot of people, but honestly, the celestial portion of the Marvel universe is so worth exploring. And if fans really connect with Marvel's first family, they would be a great way to continue that storyline. That's only the theory if Galactus originally comes from 616 though, because another theory suggests that this Galactus is actually the same one that we saw in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Now, when that movie came out, I was so excited to see Galactus on screen finally. I knew that the Silver Surfer being in the title meant that we were probably going to see Galactus. I had just gotten to the Galactus battle in Marvel Ultimate Alliance right around when that first teaser dropped, and my anticipation for Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer was through the roof. But the movie came out, it was okay. I think a lot of people are starting to look at that movie with nostalgia glasses on and deciding that they really like it. And while I think it's an improvement from the first Fantastic Four movie in the mid-2000s, it's still not very good, especially the way that they use Galactus, whose true form only appears in silhouette in some kind of intergalactic cloud. But that's not what anybody wanted to see. We wanted to see a giant man in purple and blue armor. Luckily, nearly 20 years later, we are finally seeing that on the big screen, and potentially this is the same version of the character. Following his battle with the Fantastic Four in the mid-2000s movies, at some point that universe was destroyed, but Galactus, being a cosmic being, was able to survive the destruction and just hopped over to a new universe. This is why we don't see the Norrin Radd version of Silver Surfer. This version of Galactus was already betrayed by Norrin Radd, so in an attempt to not repeat that mistake, he selects Shalabal as his new herald. Now, I think both of these possibilities do make sense, and we could see them happening in the movie. After all, this is the multiverse saga. We've seen characters return that we expected to never see again, and I think both of these theories offer interesting possibilities for what Galactus could be like in the MCU. That's all I have to say about that topic though. Let me know what you think about these theories in the comments below, and as I said in the beginning, we're gonna wrap this video up with a mailbag question. Again, if you want a question answered in a future video, leave it down in the comments below with the hashtag mailbag. Today's question comes from Star Wars fan 2172. They ask, do you think it's possible for the original MCU Avengers to come back in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars? And do you think it's possible for more Avengers movies to be in the works? It doesn't really feel like the Avengers without the original 6 Avengers. Thank you for that question, and I do think there's a possibility we could see those characters return in Secret Wars or Doomsday in some capacity, but I don't think they'll be back for the long haul. Scarlett Johansson has made it very clear that she doesn't want to return to Natasha Romanoff in the future. She saw the end of that character, and I think the same could be said for Tony Stark or Steve Rogers. I think there is potential to tell a Secret Empire storyline in the future, but I don't think the MCU should be dependent on 6 actors and characters that started their careers in the MCU nearly 2 decades ago. The introduction of a new character taking up the mantle of another character is nothing new to the Marvel Universe and is going to be necessary as the MCU continues going into the future. I think it also speaks to the idea that Marvel needs to make fans more comfortable with the idea that these cast members aren't going to be playing these roles forever. They're getting Robert Downey Jr. back for 2 movies only because he's playing a different character, and some fans are really against that. One half is saying Robert Downey Jr. is wasting his career continuing to make Marvel movies, while the other half is saying that they're wasting Doctor Doom based on a reliance to cast somebody that fans are comfortable with seeing. It's all going to depend on the reception of Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, but thank you so much for your question, and again, if you want to leave your own, drop it in the comments down below with the hashtag #mailbag. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.